The 49ers and Trent Williams are not close on a contract, even if Kyle Shanahan doesn't seem to think so. And the Niners signed a left guard. How was your Monday? We'll talk all about that and more here on Keeping the Faith.
Still faithful. I'ma put it all on the table. We forever faithful. Yeah, we still faithful.
What's going on, 49er faithful? I'm JD. This is the Monday Night Live edition of Keeping the Faith. And as always, there is never a short on 49ers news to discuss. So here we go. It was a pretty eventful and busy Monday in 49er land with plenty of topics to go around, from the latest in the Trent Williams saga between he and the 49ers as they continue to hash out a potential resolution to their contract drama. Also, Kyle Shanahan, 49ers head coach Kyle Shanahan, had some things to say about what the team has accomplished thus far in the offseason as it pertains to acquiring talent, bringing guys in via free agency. He spoke over the weekend during the flag football event down in Los Angeles. He spoke with NBC Sports Bay Area's Jennifer Lee Chan, and we will react to some of his statements there. And just about an hour and a half ago, the news came down that the San Francisco 49ers have agreed to terms with former Miami Dolphins and Dallas Cowboys left guard Robert Jones. We will get to that as well later on in the show. But first things first, for those of you that are tuning in live and are participating in our live chat, what I like to call the show within the show, make sure you, when you come through the door, drop your ones in the live chat so I see that you're here, and that way I can always say what's up to you guys as you trickle on in, because I always love showing love to those that tune in to our shows live. And I see a couple. I see my guy Esai here chiming in first. What's up, man? What's up, Esai? Good to see you, my friend. He says Trent's gone. Okay, I'll have to get your thoughts on that here later in the show. I'm not sure why you think that. We'll see. We'll talk about it. And then Cinnamon chimes in, says, "Hey, JD, how you doing, Cinnamon? Good to see you here on this Monday." Now, before we get into the meat and potatoes of tonight's live stream, a couple quick housekeeping notes that I wanted to share with you guys. Like I mentioned the other day, we are this close to gaining monetization here on the channel, which means I will be able to provide memberships and perks to the loyal viewers of this channel, and that should be coming sooner rather than later. So keep your eyes peeled for that. I will definitely make an announcement when we get to that stage, and I can give you guys more information. But for those of you that enjoy the content and want to help support the channel while also being a part of something pretty cool with the membership ideas and things that I have coming up, I'll be able to definitely share that stuff with you guys pretty soon. Also, I know that some of you have been asking me, JD, when are we really going to dig in to the draft content? We've been dipping our toes in the water in the draft talk in recent days as NFL free agency is kind of winding down at this point. But we will definitely be hitting the draft hard and heavy in the coming days and weeks, as we are 1 month out from the 2026 NFL draft. I have some cool things in mind, not just as it relates to the 2026 NFL draft, but I have some cool ideas for some videos and live streams that I think you guys are going to really enjoy, because I want to take a trip down memory lane on a couple of occasions to revisit some very pivotal draft classes that this team has had over, the course of the years that helped build some of the most successful teams that the 49ers have had within the last 15 years or so. I want to revisit some of those Scott McCloughan drafts, some of those Trent Baalke drafts that helped shape the Jim Harbaugh 49ers that we all know and love. And then, of course, I want to get into some of the Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch drafts that helped shape the team that we have seen go to several NFC championship games and have 2 Super Bowl appearances. I want to do that and partake in that exercise just to show you that sometimes it can just take one really strong draft class to catapult your team to the next level. And I know the Niners, as of late, have left some things to be desired when it comes to the draft, but all it really takes is one superior draft class to kind of turn things around. And so, over the next coming days and weeks, we will be getting into what I'm going to call 49ers draft flashbacks, where I will talk about certain draft classes from particular years and how they became monumental for the successes of that iteration of 49ers football teams during whatever era that we're discussing. And also, what I want to do too, and I know you guys love my draft reaction videos. So I'm going to go into the vault and dig up some of my draft reaction videos, and we can kind of talk about them here and revisit some of the good ones that I got right. We can laugh at the ones that I look like a jackass and got things wrong. Not a stranger to laughing at myself. I don't have a problem with that. So we can go through some of my old draft reaction videos, and I want to talk about certain draft picks, certain draft picks that the Niners have made, my reactions in real time, and kind of where the fan base was at that time, why certain picks were such a big deal, and kind of I want to take a trip down memory lane, because there are some memories that I have of the draft that I love, and I want to get into that with you guys. So we will definitely be taking a trip down memory lane as we get closer to the draft with what a series I'm going to call 49ers Draft Flashback. So keep a lookout for that. I think that'll be fun, a fun little exercise to kind of break up the monotony and kill some time as we are waiting for the upcoming 2026 NFL Draft. I see a few more of you guys chiming in. That's awesome. The 49ers 2025. What's up, man? Good to see you. Kid Clientele chiming in. Good to see you as well. Big Brick 84 in the building. What's up, Big Brick? Good to see you, my guy. All right, let's go ahead and jump on in to the biggest topic of the day. And this came bright and early Monday morning from Sports Boom's Jason La Canfora. Most of you probably remember Jason La Canfora from his time on NFL Network, but now he reports courtesy of Sports Boom, and he put out a report Monday morning that stated that the 49ers and all-pro left tackle Trent Williams are not anywhere close to a deal yet. Now, I mean, are we shocked at that news? Not really. I mean, the Niners declined Trent Williams' $10 million option bonus this past Friday, so that tells you that, they're not anywhere close to the deal as of right now. They're still hashing through it all. We know this. We talked about it here on the channel on Friday, and we also talked about the tweet from Adam Schefter of ESPN, who reported that the 49ers are hoping to come to some sort of contract resolution with Trent Williams prior to the upcoming draft, and they are planning on having Trent Williams with the 49ers in this upcoming season. So, and we hit on that on Friday, and we'll touch on that here in a little bit. But according to Jason La Canfora, and this is a quote from his article this morning on Sports Boom, he wrote, "I don't think anything happens unless the 49ers make a big move," meaning he doesn't think anything happens or anything changes on the contract front between Trent Williams and the Niners unless the 49ers come correct and bump up their offer and meet Trent Williams where he wants to meet. Trent Williams is not budging. Trent Williams is a guy who does not play around about his money, understands his value, and understands his importance to this 49ers football team. So according to La Canfora there, he says, "I don't think anything happens unless the 49ers make a big move." That tells me La Canfora was getting that information presumably from Trent Williams' agent, because it's telling me that, La Canfora is hearing, hey, the Niners are down here, Trent's up here, nothing's going to change. Trent's not budging unless the Niners come correct. And that's what that quote tells me from Jason La Canfora. He went on to elaborate and say, "Williams doesn't have much motivation to play for anything less than the $33 million in cash he is set to earn in 2026. And the 49ers clearly aren't comfortable with that, hence the renegotiation talks. Williams is acutely aware there is a robust market for his services as a free agent or through trade. So, I mean, obviously, Trent Williams, this is not his first time around the block. It is not his first negotiation. He knows that if he were on the free agent market, he would be at the top of multiple teams' lists. And there have been names floated out there, such as the Kansas City Chiefs, Pittsburgh Steelers, Chicago Bears. I mean, Trent Williams is no dummy. He knows that if he were available to anyone and everyone across the league, he would get a deal that he wants, and it would happen relatively quickly as long as that team has the money and salary cap space to do so. Again, Trent Williams is not stupid. He understands his market, his value, and I just, again, I think all this is coming from Trent Williams' agent. Everything that La Canfora is saying here screams to me it's coming from Trent Williams' side of things. And this kind of leads me back to what we talked about on Friday when we were discussing paying attention to the wording of Adam Schefter's tweet when he said that the Niners are planning on getting a deal done with Trent Williams before the draft. We talked about this. They planned on having DeForest Buckner be a San Francisco 49er for a very long time, but it didn't happen. So when things like that come out from Adam Schefter saying the Niners are planning on this, they're planning on that, it's worded in a way to where if something happens, if they are not able to come to terms and the 49ers ultimately have to either cut Trent Williams loose or ultimately trade him, which I think is the far more likely outcome. The Niners definitely want to get something back for an asset such as Trent Williams. The Niners are trying to make themselves not look like the bad guy in all of this. They're trying to say, hey, Trent Williams is the one being unreasonable, not us. We did everything that we could. We offered him everything that we could. How many times have we paid him? We've paid Trent Williams so much money over the years. Like, you can't blame us, right? That's what's going on when you see the wording from Adam Schefter saying the Niners are planning on doing this. They want to get a deal done before the draft. You know, the wording is very, very important. But what I'm kind of coming to the determination of, or the conclusion of, is that, and I said this on Friday, the real deadline's week 1. The deadline's not the draft because Trent Williams is under contract. He is under 49ers team control. Now, it is in everyone's best interest to get a deal done as soon as possible to avoid any further conflict and not making things nasty in public and have any sort of training camp holdouts, all that stuff that we've been through several times in the past with multiple players on the 49ers. And we don't want to deal with that again here in yet another offseason that is seemingly shaping up to be just like several other off seasons in recent years with contract drama. But the real deadline's week 1. So the Niners have plenty of time. They don't have to come up with a deal for Trent Williams by the draft. They can take as much time as they need to get the deal done. However, what this is doing is with the upcoming 2026 draft and the 49ers declining that $10 million option for Trent Williams, therefore adjusting his base salary this season and bumping up that cap number, which they can absorb in the short term because they have the available salary cap space to do so. The 49ers are putting themselves in the position to let the draft come to them before they make any sort of determination what they want to do with Trent Williams. Now, I'm sure in the perfect world, they want to get a deal done and go into the draft knowing exactly what they have, who they have, and where they have it. But in this situation, the 49ers, let's say they entertain trading Trent Williams, and let's just for shits and giggles, let's say that's what happens. Let's say the 49ers trade Trent Williams during the upcoming draft. I don't see the 49ers getting anything more than a third-round pick for Trent because that is decent compensation, and the team acquiring him would have to pay Trent whatever his contract demands are. So the Niners aren't going to get a first-round pick for Trent because the team's not going to trade a first-rounder for a 38-year-old left tackle and pay him 30 some odd million dollars to play this upcoming season. That's not going to happen. A second round pick, more of the same. I can't see the 49ers getting a second round pick for Trent just because of what that salary number is going to be for whatever team acquires Trent Williams. I think a third round pick, a fourth round pick is kind of the range that the Niners would get in compensation. But the Niners can go into this draft and in the first round at the 27th pick overall, let's say a tackle that they love, a Caleb Lomu, a Monroe Freeling, one of those guys falls to the 49ers at 27 and they love him, right? They can take that guy at 27. And then on day 2 of the draft, when it's the second and third rounds, that's when you would hear the Niners trading Trent Williams. And I think that there is a world where this exists and where it is possible. And I think that the 49ers are leaving themselves open to that possibility. Now, let's say the board doesn't fall their way in the first round or maybe even the second round. The board doesn't fall their way and they don't select a tackle. They don't fall in love with a tackle who's available to them in the first or the second round. Well, in that situation, they could always pivot back to plan A, which is re-signing Trent Williams. And again, the real deadline is week 1. So just because they don't come to terms with Trent before the draft doesn't mean really to me one way or the other, whether they're keeping him or trading him. I think they're leaving themselves open to the possibility of letting the draft fall to them and then making a decision. I mean, I'm sure they kind of have an idea of where things stand, and I'm sure they have contingency plans in place and all that. But all I'm saying is, let's say the draft just doesn't go their way. Well, they can then decide, okay, let's keep Trent. Let's just cave, pay Trent what he wants, and keep drafting, filling other needs on this roster. But if they were able to somehow acquire one of the tackles in this draft that they feel could come in and be a starter day 1, maybe they do end up flipping Trent Williams on day 2 of the draft for a third round pick, or maybe day 3 for a fourth round pick. That's kind of what I see happening here. And that is why you see the wording from Adam Schefter when he said that the 49ers are, quote unquote, planning on getting a deal done with Trent Williams. Yeah, they're planning on it, right? That's the plan. But as we know, things don't always go according to plan. They didn't say they're going to get a deal done. They didn't say they're going to trade him. They leave things kind of open-ended so that if shit hits the fan, they can pivot, they can make moves and come out trying to smell like roses the best that they can. However, if you listen to 49ers head coach Kyle Shanahan, he would maybe the one to tell you that they are going to get a deal done. If you listen to Kyle Shanahan and what he said to Jennifer Lee Chan of NBC Sports Bay Area, it definitely sounds like they're going to get a deal done. I mean, hey, it came out of Kyle's mouth. When he was speaking with Jennifer over the weekend, here's the quote from 49ers head coach Kyle Shanahan when asked about the ongoing contract negotiations with Trent Williams. Kyle said, and I quote, "No updates from me. I actually stay pretty much out of that. I know John and everyone's working hard to do that. I believe they'll get that done. We love Trent too much, and eventually that'll work out." So if you listen to Kyle Shanahan, he's optimistic. He thinks a deal is going to get done. So, and he said it there. We love Trent too much. Like basically just laying it on thick. Like, man, we love Trent. We're doing everything we can to keep him, right? Just another it sounds optimistic. It sounds like they're maybe headed in the right direction if you're listening to Kyle Shanahan. But it's also a very 49ers forward sort of statement from Kyle. We love Trent. We think we're going to get it done. You know, basically saying, hey, we're doing all we can. You know, we love the guy. Again, potentially painting Trent Williams as the bad guy if they don't come to terms. That's just kind of how I'm viewing this. Maybe I'm being a little negative. Maybe I'm a little jaded from all of the contract drama in recent years with the 49ers. But, that's kind of how I interpret some of the stuff that's coming out as of late. again, I did say on Friday that at the end of the day, I do think the 49ers and Trent Williams do get a deal done. And I still believe that, even though, that part in the back of my mind is kind of telling me, listen to the words. What are the, reading interpretation, reading comprehension? What are they actually saying? But at the end of the day, I think that they're going to get a deal done. And the reason I think they're going to get a deal done, probably more than anything, is that if they trade Trent Williams, the 49ers are not only telling their team, but they're telling their fan base that they don't see themselves as legitimate Super Bowl contenders this year. You go out and you get a Mike Evans and a Christian Kirk, and you bring back Dre Greenlaw, and you make the moves that the 49ers are making, and then you go and trade Trent Williams. Like, how is that going to convince anyone that you are taking yourselves serious as a legitimate contender in 2026? If you trade away Trent Williams, that tells me and everyone else that you don't think that highly of yourselves coming into this year. But it's not only that. John Lynch, 49ers general manager John Lynch, is going into the last year of his contract with the 49ers. By all reports, Kyle Shanahan has 2 years left, depending on who you ask. And if those guys want to keep their jobs long term, I mean, why would you want to trade Trent Williams? That's going to do nothing but hurt your team and hurt your chances of performing well in 2026 and ultimately keeping your job if you're John Lynch beyond this season. So that alone is a reason I think the Niners end up keeping Trent Williams, because they're trying to do everything that they can to keep their jobs, be contenders in 2026, and at least paint that narrative to the public that they are really trying this year after foregoing pretty much all of free agency last year. So I do think they get a deal done unless trading Trent Williams is something that might be coming from Jed York. That is another prospect in this entire equation as well. And I haven't heard really anyone talk about this angle of the negotiations or the ongoing contract saga. What if it's Jed York who goes to John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan and says, you know what? I'm tired of writing Trent these big checks every 2 years. And we tightened the purse strings last year. And even this year, we're making some solid moves, but all these contracts that we're signing players to this offseason are very team-friendly moves. Mike Evans, 1 year, about $14 million. Christian Kirk's deal, 1 year, roughly $3-4 million with some incentives. Nate Hobbs, similar deal. Dre Greenlaw, similar deal. Osa Odigizua, that was the one big splash move that the team made. But maybe what if Jed York is the one giving the directive on this Trent Williams situation above John Lynch, above Kyle Shanahan, and saying, hey, I'm tired of spending money on Trent Williams and having him hold this team hostage every 18 to 24 months. And he's a 38-year-old left tackle who is not getting better. And you know what? Maybe it's in the best interest of the 49ers if we trade Trent Williams. What if that's an aspect of this entire thing that I don't think anyone's talking about? Because we are 12 months removed from Jed York, putting the wallet away. And Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch publicly talking about that. What if that is still a part of this entire equation? What if Jed York is the one who puts the kibosh on the whole thing? And in that situation, you would imagine that Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch are in the loop on that, and it wouldn't necessarily reflect poorly on Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch if they traded Trent Williams, if that direct order is coming from Jed York. Jed York could very well end up keeping Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch beyond this season if it's his idea to shed the books of Trent Williams. Just something I've been thinking about. What if something that we're missing in this whole thing is that Jed York might not want to pay Trent Williams anymore? Because it's every other year with Trent Williams at this point. And I know that Jed York he's money conscious lately. He's been very, very aware of how much he's spending. And, yes, they've been making some solid moves this offseason, but if you really look at the dollars that they're spending, they're very prudent dollars that aren't really tied beyond this year for most of the moves that the Niners have made this offseason with the incoming players. So if I'm Jed York, like, maybe I'm sick and tired of paying Trent Williams whenever he wants to be paid. If I'm Jed York, I go up to Trent Williams and say, hey, you signed your name on this contract. Like, honor the contract and play. You're 38 years old. What do you expect? I don't know. It could be, I could be completely misguided on that. I could be completely wrong. But all I'm saying is I haven't really heard anyone else talk about the Jed York component of this entire thing. And maybe that's the hang up because we know Kyle Shanahan. What would Kyle Shanahan do in this situation? He would run into Jed York's office, John Lynch's office, and said, hey, just get the deal done. We need Trent here. But that hasn't happened yet. And Kyle Shanahan's, talking optimistically to Jennifer Lee Chan, saying that they're going to get a deal done. So maybe they are. Maybe they are. Maybe this is all for naught, and they'll get a deal done with Trent Williams before the draft, and everything will be forgotten. And in a few months, no one's going to even be thinking about this. But all I'm saying is just in the back of my mind, I can't shake the idea that maybe Jed York could have his hands in this situation. That could be something at play here that I don't think anyone else has really talked about. That's just me. Let's see what you guys are saying here in the chat before I move on with the show. 404 Error Not Found says, it's a good point, man. It never crossed my mind. Exactly. JTAN49 says, JD, Jason La Canfora said there's a robust trade market for Trent Williams. Did you guys talk about that already? And would you trade him? We've been hitting on the trade stuff. He did say that there is a robust trade market for Trent Williams. And I mentioned a few teams, the Pittsburgh Steelers, Kansas City Chiefs, Chicago Bears, as teams that would be towards the front of the line, knocking down, Trent Williams' door, trying to acquire his services. That is something we hit on a little bit ago. Let's see what else you guys are saying here before we move ahead. I don't want to miss anyone's comment. Bear with me, guys. I'm just scrolling. Man, you guys are doing some work here in the live chat tonight. Appreciate all you guys for tuning in. Danny Golding TV says, I'm worried that Trent will be able to stay healthy more than I'm worried about the Niners not being able to get a deal done with him, re-sign him. Okay. You know what? I see where you're coming from there. I can understand that for sure. Rick Diaz, how you doing, man? Long time no see. Glad to see you're still watching the show. Thank you so much. My guy Rocco says, make Trent back off that huge payday by drafting an O-lineman at 27. Okay, I'm glad you mentioned that, Rocco, because if the Niners drafted a left tackle at 27, is that going to make Trent Williams really step off his high horse and kind of back off of his contract demands? He's still going to be better than whoever the Niners draft at 27 and gives the 49ers the best chance to win in 2026. And you're hearing it in that report from Jason La Canfora that we talked about. Trent Williams knows there's a market for him out there. Trent Williams knows that teams will be beating down the 49ers' door to trade for him if it comes down to that. So I don't think like calling his bluff and drafting a left tackle at 27 would do anything to make Trent Williams budge, because Trent Williams has the ultimate leverage of saying, hey, yeah, you can draft someone at 27, but are they better than me right now? No. Does that change the market coming after me right now? No. There's teams that want to pay me my money. So either you're paying me my money or another team's paying me my money. Them drafting a left tackle at 27 does nothing but, okay, I don't want to say it does nothing, because it would give the Niners the ability to trade Trent Williams and have that contingency plan in place. That's better than nothing, I guess, right? But if let's say the Niners kept Trent Williams and drafted a tackle at 27, that doesn't help the 49ers in 2026. The Niners want to field the best team possible this year. All the moves they've made this year, this offseason, are for 2026. And drafting a left tackle at the 27th overall spot in the first round does not help the 49ers this year because he wouldn't get on the field unless he's playing left guard. But by all accounts, that's out the window after some of the news that we got today. And we'll get to that a little bit later. So I don't know. I believe, like I said, at the end of the day, the 49ers will get a deal done with Trent. I feel like they'll get that deal done before the draft because they don't want to go into the draft with that drama unless, of course, they're just that far apart. It's not going to happen, and they end up trading him. And then we go from there. And then they pick someone early in the draft, and we kick off a new era of 49er football. But I feel like the 49ers and Trent Williams do get the deal done because it's in Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch's best interest to do so. So there we are. Let me scroll down here. All right. Rocco says JD wants edge at 27. I feel it. We're not talking draft tonight, but to answer your question, that's how I'm feeling. That's what I'm looking at. We'll definitely get into that as we move forward. But you're on board. You're thinking of what I'm thinking there for sure. All right, let's move ahead. We hit on the Trent Williams stuff here quite a bit already. Let me move on to the next topic here in the show tonight. Kyle Shanahan took part in that flag football event down in Southern California over the weekend, and he spoke with NBC Sports Bay Area's Jennifer Lee Chan. Like we mentioned earlier, he hit on that Trent Williams topic, but he also had some interesting things to say regarding some of the 49ers offseason acquisitions that I wanted to share with you guys. He had some cool things to say that I definitely took notice of. So Kyle Shanahan on wide receiver Mike Evans that the 49ers acquired on the first day of free agency from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Here's what Kyle Shanahan had to say about the future Hall of Famer. Mike's a unique dude. I mean, he's a Hall of Famer. Never had a guy truly like Mike. Had some Hall of Famers, but they've all been wired differently. And to get a guy with Mike's length, what he can do down the field, how big of a competitor he is, I just love the guy that we're adding, how committed he is to winning, and I think that's why he chose to come to us. And then Kyle Shanahan went on to elaborate a little bit more on the Mike Evans acquisition, talking about why Mike Evans took less money to come to the 49ers. He had standing offers from other NFL teams for more money, but he took the 49ers deal because for Evans, it's all about football. And I know as a Niner fan, that's music to my ears. I love hearing that from a guy of Mike Evans' caliber. And here's what Kyle had to say. It says everything about how important football is to him. And he thinks football first and wanted to be in what he thought was the best football situation for him. And when you have guys like that, to me, that gives you a chance to do something special. And that just makes me have that much more respect for Mike Evans. And I know Niner fans have already kind of endeared themselves to the 33-year-old future Hall of Famer. And he hasn't even played a snap for this team yet, just because of all the good publicity coming out of Santa Clara regarding Mike Evans and how badly he wanted to come here for football reasons only. I love hearing that stuff. And of course, Kyle Shanahan loves hearing that stuff as well. Mike Evans' motivation to come to San Francisco had very little to do with money and had a lot more to do with coming to a team that he feels he can help, coming to a team that he thinks can be a contender. And it's just pure football, nirvana to me. I love hearing that from Kyle Shanahan. I love hearing everything I've heard so far about Mike Evans so far in the Bay Area. It's been an awesome, couple of weeks to have Mike Evans with the 49ers, just from a football standpoint. He had similar things, though, to say about the other wide receiver the 49ers acquired in free agency, being former Houston Texan, Jacksonville Jaguar, and Arizona Cardinal, Christian Kirk. Kyle said, and I quote, very similar to Mike, he could have gone to other places too, but he wanted to be in the right situation. And he liked our place. And I've always been a huge fan of Christian since he was at Arizona. I feel lucky to get both of those guys. So Christian Kirk being another guy who took less money and made a football decision to come and help this team get over the hump and do something for himself that was football centric. It wasn't all about the money. It was about football. And if you're Mike Evans and Christian Kirk, you look at the 49ers wide receiver situation and you think, hey, we can come in there and we can get a lot of targets. We can get a lot of playing time and we can help this team get over the top. It is a win-win situation for everybody involved. And Christian Kirk making a similar decision to Mike Evans and coming to the 49ers for less money, for more, purely football reasons. Love to hear that out of players that the Niners are getting this offseason. Moving along, Kyle Shanahan also had some glowing things to say about the return of 49ers linebacker Dre Greenlaw. And you guys know me on this channel. I can talk about Dre Greenlaw all day, and I'm so ecstatic that he is back with the 49ers. But here's what Kyle Shanahan had to say about reuniting with one of their own. Very excited, Shanahan said. Dre is one of my favorite players ever, people ever. We were heartbroken when we lost him last year, but it was just a year away. He's right back at home, and we're very excited. And, Kyle said it, man. They were heartbroken. The team was heartbroken to lose their leader, one of their leaders in Dre Greenlaw. He's kind of like their spirit animal, and they lost him for a year, but now he's back. And, the team is just as excited as the fan base is to get 57 back in the fold. And then Kyle Shanahan had something cool to say regarding the friendship and chemistry between Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw, the 49ers, two linebackers. Kyle said, it's special. Those guys went through a lot together. They have a very special friendship, and Dre is special to all of us. So we're real pumped to get his family back. That's just awesome. And, there's no hard feelings between the 49ers and Greenlaw. It's just good news, man. And Kyle Shanahan's just as happy as we are to get Dre Greenlaw back with the Niners. And I can't wait, man. I am so excited. I can't wait for training camp. I'm excited for preseason. The home opener, when Dre Greenlaw comes out of the tunnel, Levi's is never going to be louder than it will be during the home opener when Greenlaw comes out of the tunnel during intros. It's going to be nuts. If there was a roof on Levi's Stadium, it will be blown off this coming September when Dre Greenlaw comes out the tunnel. So if you're planning on going to a game this year, that's probably the one you want to go to. Whatever the home opener is, whenever it is, against whoever, that's the game you need to go to. The Niners home opener at Levi's Stadium. I cannot freaking wait. I see a lot of you guys hitting on stuff about the draft, and I appreciate that, but we're not going to get into too much of that here right now. Maybe at the end of the stream, I'll take some questions. So if you guys want to talk draft stuff at the end of the show, we can definitely hit on that. But I do have some set topics that we're hitting on tonight, so just bear with me, guys. At the end of the show, I'll open it to you and take your questions from the chat. We can hit on a couple of draft topics if you want. But next on my agenda for tonight's show, the Niners, like I mentioned at the top of the program, about an hour and a half, 2 hours ago, announced their latest free agent signing as the 49ers agreed to terms with former Miami Dolphin and Dallas Cowboys left guard Robert Jones. Jones played 49 games and had 30 starts with the Miami Dolphins in 4 seasons from 2021 through 2024 as an undrafted free agent with the Dolphins. After the 2021 NFL draft. He did sign a 1-year deal with Dallas heading into the 2025 season, but did not play a single snap for them after suffering a broken bone in his neck during training camp. However, by all accounts, he is healthy and ready to go and has now thrust himself into a wide open competition for the 49ers starting left guard spot. He is 27 years old, 6'4", 321 pounds. So he is a big boy. And if you watch a little bit of his tape, and I stress a little bit because that's all I got to really watch before we went live here tonight, he's a bit of a mauler. He's a powerful guy who can move some bodies, move some earth, and I would say he's probably more of a power blocking left guard than a zone blocking left guard, but he obviously can play the zone scheme because he played in Miami under former 49ers assistant coach Mike McDaniel. So he knows the scheme, he knows the score, he knows the situation, he knows what he's stepping into as soon as he touches down in Santa Clara. So he'll be a good scheme fit. And the thing that I really like about Robert Jones is he is a big, physical, mauling type of left guard. And that's going to help the 49ers in a big way when they go up against teams like the Seattle Seahawks. And we all remember what happened week 18 down at Levi Stadium and how the Niners offensive line looked against that imposing Seattle Seahawks defensive front. The Niners bring in Robert Jones, who is a big, physical, powerful dude. And that's going to help the Niners up front against bigger fronts, more physical fronts, teams like the Seahawks and whatnot. So I like the Robert Jones acquisition. The exact financial details have not come out from what I have seen thus far. But I would imagine it's probably a 1-year deal worth close to the vet minimum. And he's going to come in and compete for that starting left guard spot along with Brett Toth, Connor Colby. They're all going to be competing for that left guard spot. But if you listen to Matt Mayoko, the godfather of 49ers media, he said that Robert Jones is a strong candidate to start at left guard. And if Matt Mayoko is saying it, the 49ers are feeling it because we all know, and we said this the other night, Matt Mayoko doesn't say anything the Niners don't want him to say. So when Matt Mayoko tells me that Robert Jones is a strong candidate to start at left guard, I would imagine if he's healthy, that will probably be your week 1 starter next to Trent Williams or whoever the 49ers left tackle is going to be week 1. So just keep that in mind. And another part of the entire Robert Jones acquisition that stood out to me at this point now, with all the acquisitions that the 49ers have made in free agency, it's setting them up to kind of narrow things down in terms of needs as they go into the first round of the 2026 draft with that 27th overall pick. They've added receivers. They've added offensive linemen. They've added defensive linemen. They've added a cornerback. They've added linebackers, right? They're taking care of a bunch of their needs before the draft so that they can maybe focus on one particular area with that first round pick. Now, of course, we don't know who's going to fall to them at 27th overall, and things could change depending on how the board, stacks up and who falls and who's available. But as it stands right now, with all the moves that the Niners are making, I mean, if you want to peg the position the Niners are going to target with that first round pick at this point, I mean, you'd have to imagine it's probably an edge rusher, potentially a speedy wide receiver, maybe a tight end, but I don't think they're going to, invest a first round pick in a tight end unless somehow Kenyon Sadiq out of Oregon falls to them. But I don't see that happening. I mean, he's putting up, freakish Vernon Davis type, measurements and numbers. I don't see him lasting to 27, but if he does, would I be surprised if the Niners took him? Probably not. And then, safety is another spot the Niners could potentially address. But, if I had to put my money on it, I think that edge is probably the most glaring weakness on this team as it stands right now here on Monday, March the 23rd, 2026. I think edge opposite Nick Bosa is probably the most glaring need. They need to bring in a guy who can really get after the passer, a pure speed rusher guy. I think that would be the spot that they ultimately target. But again, like we talked about earlier in the show, it all kind of depends on what happens with Trent Williams. We got to see how that plays out, and then we'll go from there. But I like what the Niners are doing. They've addressed a lot of their needs. They've addressed areas of concern. And I'm going to make a video about this, but real quick, everything the Niners have done this offseason has addressed one main characteristic: toughness. Think about it. Everything the Niners have done this offseason, bringing in Mike Evans, who is big, physical, strong, out on the boundary. Christian Kirk, who can do all the dirty work from the slot. Dre Greenlaw, bringing all that physicality next to Fred Warner. Nate Hobbs, who people may not realize is a very scrappy and physical player as a cornerback. He will come up and hit you in the mouth. He's a very willing tackler, and that's why he's had some injury issues over the last couple of years. But everything the Niners have done, Osa Odigizua as well, very, very physical defensive tackle who is penetrating through opposing lines of scrimmage to wreak havoc in the backfield, and get to the quarterback. Everything the Niners have done this offseason, even Brett Toth, who is has a nasty streak to his game. If you watch him, he likes to finish blocks. He'll go out of his way. If he gets to the second level and he doesn't have a man to block, he looks for someone. He goes out of his way to knock somebody off their feet. Everything the Niners have done this offseason, every single free agent move has been about getting more physical, getting tougher, nastier, bringing in Robert Jones, who is a road grader at 6'4", 321. I like what the Niners are doing. They're trying to get more physical, more stout, more strong up front, and that's what every single move has accomplished this offseason for the 49ers in free agency. And like I said, I'm going to make a separate video on that topic, but I definitely wanted to share that with you guys because that's just something that kind of stood out to me tonight as I was thinking about all the moves that the 49ers have made this free agency period. Let's see what you guys are saying here in the chat. Stovey says it's all mid offensive free agent signings. Let's be real. We'll see. I'm not saying they're all going to be, Pro Bowlers and whatnot, but for the price tag, I like what the Niners have done. They have spent money effectively, efficiently, and also addressed areas of need while making this team bigger and stronger and more physical. So I'm not going to, I'm not going to rain on the free agency parade because I like a lot of what the Niners have done. I'm not saying that, they've hit a home run or they're, just winning free agency, even though I do think they are one of the better teams in terms of what they've accomplished in free agency. But I like what they've done, and I like how they've done it effectively in terms of cost control and whatnot. But let's move on. We do have one other topic, I believe, that I wanted to get into here tonight. Yeah, one other topic. This also came down today, according to Jennifer Lee Chan of NBC Sports Bay Area, and that is that free agent edge rusher Joey Bosa will not be taking any sort of discount if he lands with the 49ers to play with his brother, Nick Bosa. Shocking, I know. But according to Jennifer Lee Chan, he's not going to take any kind of discount, any kind of family discount, nothing like that if he's going to end up coming here and playing for the 49ers. And that's not rocket science or brain surgery. It doesn't take a genius to kind of figure that out because we all know the Bosas are all about their money. They always have been. But at the same time, it's not really a big deal or any kind of earth-shattering news to me. Joey Bosa is coming off of a solid year in Buffalo. He was a top 8 ranked pass rusher in terms of efficiency, according to PFF. And he's still, just 31 years old. It's not like he's 34 or 35. He still got some good football left in him. And, at the end of the day, the Niners have enough cap space and will have more than enough cap space once they figure out the entire Trent Williams situation of things. They will have more than enough cap space to bring in Joey Bosa on a 1-year deal worth anywhere from $10 to $12 million. That's not going to hurt them this year from doing anything else that they want to do. And it's not going to hurt the team moving forward because it would probably just be a 1-year deal. So if they brought in Joey Bosa at that kind of number, it wouldn't bother me. I'm not going to say it moves my needle and makes this team a Super Bowl contender. And I'm not going to be jumping through the roof over it, but I wouldn't be mad at it either. And at 1 year, roughly $10 to $12 million, it doesn't hurt now. It doesn't hurt the team beyond 2026. It wouldn't worry me, So anyone who's worried about any kind of cap number for Joey Bosa this year, I think you're a little misguided, maybe stressed out about the salary cap too much. This thing we all see, these contracts can be manipulated, and you can always kick the can down the road and have adjustments and void years and all that stuff. If they bring in Joey Bosa, it's going to be fine. And just because he's not going to take a discount should not dissuade the 49ers from kicking the tires on Joey Bosa if he decides he wants to come here and play with his brother. I think he would add to the 49ers defensive line. And I don't think it would be the last move that they would make on the defensive line either. I still think they draft an edge rusher relatively early, a youngster who can come in and be that speed demon off the edge. So just saw that news today regarding Joey Bosa probably not taking a discount if he comes to the 49ers. And at the end of the day, I don't think it's a big deal if he doesn't take a discount because he's not going to break the bank either. So there you have it, faithful. That's the rundown for tonight's show. We hit on the Trent Williams conversation with Jason La Canfora of Sports Boom reporting that the Niners and Trent Williams are not close on a contract, but that shouldn't come as a shock yet. But we'll see what happens between now and the draft a month from now. We hit on the acquisition of free agent left guard Robert Jones. We also touched on some statements from Kyle Shanahan from over the weekend. And, of course, the latest involving Joey Bosa coming to the 49ers potentially without any sort of discount if he does end up landing in the Bay Area. But, okay, here's what we'll do now. Go ahead, and I will go ahead and open it up to you guys in the chat, take your questions, and we can hit on whatever you guys want. I'm sure a lot of you guys want to have some draft questions answered, so we can definitely do that. And like I mentioned at the top of the show, for those that missed out, we will be hitting the draft in the coming days and weeks here on the channel big time. I have some cool things planned in terms of what I'm calling 49er draft flashbacks, where we talk about specific draft picks, my reactions to them in real time, certain draft classes and how they ultimately shaped up some successful 49ers teams of the past that we've had. And I'm, of course, going to be hitting on the 2026 draft, players that I like. We did talk about my wide receivers that I have my eye on last week. And moving forward, we'll definitely hit on all the other needs that the 49ers have going into this draft. But let's take some questions from the chat and see what you guys are asking. Rocco says, JD, give me your draft edge love crush. Is it Romello? No, it's Zion Young. It's Zion Young. He's got enough speed and power to entice me in drafting him at 27. I know he's got a little bit of off the field kind of concerns, or he's a little rough around the edges. That doesn't bother me. This team can stand to get a little bit of an edge to him. And I don't mean that in terms of the football position. I'm saying this team can get some guys that might be a little rough around the edges. Every football team needs a couple. And I like Zion Young, and I like the way he plays, man. I wouldn't be mad if Zion Young was the pick at 27. Let's see. Let's see who else is asking some questions in here. Got to scroll back up, make sure I didn't miss anything. All right, let's see. Kenny 49er says, JD, why do we suck at drafting? If I knew that, I think the 49ers would know that, and they wouldn't suck at drafting. I don't know. It's strange. I think that they look at character a little too much. I think that they got burned by the Reuben Foster deal early on, so they've kind of scratched off a lot of guys off of their boards. And anyone that has any sort of character flaw or character concern, I think they kind of eliminate them altogether. And I think that pushes the Niners away from some very talented players. And the Niners are all about their culture and their locker room and the guys that they have in the building. But in my opinion, like if you feel that confidently about the kind of culture that you can build here and the players that you have in your locker room, shouldn't they be able to kind of handle a talented player who's got, some warts? I don't know. Maybe that's just me. But as far as like why they suck at drafting, I wouldn't say they suck at drafting. I would just say they've been really inconsistent You know, they've had some home run picks in the middle to late rounds, and they've had some huge whiffs at the top. And I don't know. Some people have speculated that, you know, the first couple rounds could be, you know, potentially like Kyle Shanahan picks or John Lynch picks, Robert Saleh picks over the years, as opposed to the scouts and the personnel guys who really put in the work throughout the entire year, all 7 rounds. And maybe that is why the Niners have missed a lot at the top of the draft, because of the ultimate decisions early on coming down to people who aren't as invested time wise as some of the other people in the building. Um, I don't know. I don't have a clear answer for you. If I did, I would pass it along to the 49ers first before I told you guys, because I want the Niners to draft well, just like you do. I don't know. I don't know why they suck at drafting, or you know, I think really one of the biggest things to me is that Trey Lance trade set this team back big time, and I think they still haven't really recovered from that. Um, I don't know. They've just made some crazy mistakes, but they've also made some amazing picks too. And it's a head scratcher, man. It's weird. I don't know. I'm sorry, that's probably not the answer that you wanted, but kind of crazy. 415 Key says Caden Proctor thoughts. Very, very big and athletic enough that if the 49ers picked him at 27, I could see it. I could see that as a potential pick by the Niners, because he's got movement ability for a guy his size. But again, it all depends on Trent Williams. What happens with Trent Williams? We got to figure that out before we figure anything else out in terms of offensive linemen at 27. Jesus Christ, my King says, who do you like for wide receiver at number 27? We talked about the receivers on Friday's stream, but I'll quickly just kind of give you my thoughts. If they're taking a receiver at 27, I like Denzel Boston. I love his size, and the fact that you have Mike Evans in the fold as someone who can be the perfect teacher for a guy like Denzel Boston. I mean, I think that pick would be a home run. I also like Omar Cooper Jr., who is kind of baby Debo. Everyone knows that by this point in the draft process. I could see them taking Omar Cooper Jr. and throwing him into that Debo role day one. And then my favorite wide receiver in this draft is Zachariah Branch out of Georgia. And I don't think that they would take him at 27. That would be like a trade back scenario to get to the early to mid second round, or, you know, maybe he's there with their second round pick at 58. But Zachariah Branch is probably my favorite receiver in this draft. And I've hit on him or talked about him a couple times here on this channel since January, here and there sporadically. But I really like Zachariah Branch out of Georgia. I just love the tenacity that he plays with and the physicality he plays with for a guy his size. Big Brick 84 says, JD, what other free agents do you see us picking up? Well, I mean, we just talked about the Joey Bosa thing. I think that is still a very strong possibility. This team has added a couple offensive linemen, or three actually, with Verdarian Lowe, Brett Toth, and Robert Jones. So I don't think they're going to go with any more offensive linemen in free agency. Again, if they go defensive line, I think it would probably be Joey Bosa. They've already added a corner, Nate Hobbs. They have a million linebackers, so I don't see them adding another linebacker. In terms of the safety spot, there is rumblings that the Atlanta Falcons could move on from Jesse Bates, who played for Raheem Morris in Atlanta, is still just 29 years old and is an absolute ball hawk. So if there's any kind of way that the Niners can go out and get Jesse Bates, I would be all for that. I would pick him up from the airport if the 49ers go out and get Jesse Bates. I would love that. Again, maybe that's not a free agency acquisition. Maybe they have to do something via trade unless the Falcons decide to cut bait with him. But I would love for the Niners to go get Jesse Bates somehow if they want to address the safety spot. Let's see what else you guys are saying. 415 Key says, why are wide receivers the second highest paid position? It should be left tackle and defensive end. Are you talking on the 49ers or are you talking in the NFL? I mean, receivers are the one that score touchdowns and bring eyes on the game. So teams pay for those exciting players because those are the guys that bring a lot of fans to the games and sell a lot of jerseys, if you're talking about across the league. Esai says, can we say bye to Ben Bartch finally with the new signing? I think that it's safe to say that Ben Bartch is not coming back to the 49ers. I think his inability to stay healthy has seen him play his last snaps with the 49ers. He did have a visit recently with the Detroit Lions. And again, now at left guard, the Niners have Brett Toth, Robert Jones, Connor Colby, Nick Zakelj. Like they have more than enough at the guard spot now to have a solid competition. And I don't think Ben Bartch is coming back to the Niners unless there's some kind of injury. Let's see. Crazy Juice says, if Cassius Howell is still available at pick 27, then that's the guy. I wouldn't be mad at that either. I would be fine with that as well. But again, it's hard for me to say, yeah, go get him, do that. We don't know how the board's going to fall. And we don't know who else is going to be available when Cassius Howell, let's say Cassius Howell is available at 27. Well, who else is there? It's hard for me to be very precise because I have to see who all is there at that time. I like Cassius Howell just like the next guy, but I like Zion Young too. So if both of them are there, then what? I don't know. We'll have to see how the board ultimately shakes out. Rocco says, always look forward to your draft reaction videos, best on YouTube. I appreciate that, man. I love making them. They're fun to make, and you guys can definitely look forward to those. I will have my draft reaction videos. And again, like I mentioned at the top of the show, we are this close to getting monetization back on the channel, which means I will be able to provide you guys with channel membership opportunities where you guys can sign up to a monthly membership and get all kinds of perks and things. I'm going to have different things planned for the channel members for sure. And potentially, if we have it all worked out by the draft, I could end up doing something for the channel members around the time of the draft, maybe some sort of a draft hangout for members only, that sort of thing. I got some ideas, percolating. It all depends on how the membership stuff ultimately happens between now and the draft. And then, of course, once I get that monetization, you guys will be able to drop super chats if you want to have, if you have any specific questions that you want answered. The super chats are always going to take priority here on the channel. Not required, but always greatly appreciated. So we're grinding here on the channel, and I'm really trying to make this thing, blow up and have some fun with it. So if you guys want to help support once we get the monetization off the ground, I would greatly appreciate that. Let's see what else you guys are saying. Esai says, going to have to join for that, JD. Appreciate you, Esai, as always, my friend. All right. Well, I think that is where we're going to leave it here tonight. We've been live for a little bit over an hour, hit on a ton of 49ers topics. And of course, we will be back here live multiple times a week during the off season. And the plan is to keep that going in the regular season. And of course, if there's any breaking news, we will drop, instant reaction videos as things happen. So Niner fans, make sure you like and subscribe. Make sure you have your notifications on so you don't miss a thing here on Keeping the Faith. Been doing this on and off since 2009. And so if you're hearing other content creators say that they've been doing it longer than other people, they're lying, because that's not true. If you're hearing people say that, there wasn't content creators prior to 2012, they're lying. They weren't around. They weren't watching, So there's just, all I'm saying is the real ones know. The real ones who've been watching this channel for a long time, they know. And I appreciate you guys, whether you've been watching since 2009 or if you just subscribed this week. Doesn't matter to me. I appreciate all of you just the same. And we will be back very soon as more news breaks with the 49ers. But I hope all of you guys have a great rest of your evening, and we will be back very soon here.